Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Emily Kobier-Schell and I am a member of the Build Up editorial board. Build Up is Europe's largest international portal for energy efficiency and renewable energy in buildings. It is a unique community that provides the opportunity to discuss, contribute, and collaborate with other experts in this field. Build Up aims to bring together stakeholders working in the building and construction sector to reap the collective intelligence about energy reduction in buildings by encouraging knowledge exchange. Our editorial work is organized around a topic of the month, which allows us to dig deeper into specific themes. Each month, several items are produced by Build Up, such as overview and technical articles and written interviews. But that's not all. Build Up also offers the opportunity to host webinars on topics related to energy efficiency and renewable energy in buildings. More recently, Build Up has also opened its doors to distinguished experts in the field to share their knowledge in front of our cameras in our Build Up expert talks. The Build Up portal shares daily the most relevant events in the field, but we also participate actively in many European events around the year, such as EPP Center and REBA conferences, H2020, Interreg and Cost Action events, Covenant of Mayors, and more, always with the aim of further disseminating their results and helping to create high-quality media content. The Build Up portal is updated daily, reaching around 120 new items each month, including news, events, publications, articles, and video content. But Build Up is not only us, Build Up is also a community, and we invite you to be a part of it. By becoming a member, you can contribute by uploading your own content and promoting your project news, events, case studies, reports, and more. By contributing content, Build Up will help you to reach a broader audience through our online portal, our social media channels, and our monthly newsletter. Visit us at our brand new, as of yesterday afternoon, portal that you can find at build-up.ec.europa.eu to find out more. It is a pleasure for Build Up to host today's webinar titled Digital Tools for Health and Safety on the Construction Site, brought to you by the COGITO project, and that is part of an ongoing series called Practical Tools for the Construction Sector in Digital Twin. The aim of the series is to present COGITO Digital Construction 4.0 Toolbox and gather important feedback from the audience. In today's agenda, we'll start with an overview of the COGITO project from Dr. Georgos Giannakis, Project Manager at Hypertech. The presentation will cover the project objectives and recent results, and the project tools in a nutshell. It will be followed by a brief Q&A. Following the first presentation, there will be an interactive poll via Slido, so we encourage you to take part in that. After the first poll, we'll hear from our second speaker of today, Johan Teidsted, Professor, Department of Civil and Mechanical Engineering at the Technical University of Denmark, who will discuss digital tools for health and safety, and this will also be followed by a Q&A. And then we'll round off today's session with a second poll via Slido and a brief wrap-up. We invite you and encourage you to send us questions through the GoToWebinar platform that can be answered during both of the Q&A sessions. Please specify who your question is for, or if it is for both of the presenters. We remind you that you'll be able to find the webinar recording on the Build Up portal and also on our YouTube channel in the coming days. It will be next week in this case, together with the presentation slides. So without further ado, we'll move directly to our first speaker, Dr. Georgos Giannakis. Let me pass you the controls, one moment. Okay, the floor is yours.
Okay, so good morning and welcome to our second webinar of COGITO that will be focused today on three main outcomes of the project: the digital tools for health and safety towards increased safety on the construction of infrastructure projects. At this point, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Build Up team for hosting this webinar, our colleague from DTU, Johan Teidsted, for being here today to present the digital tools for health and safety that have been developed and delivered within the second year of the project lifetime, to our dissemination communication manager, Agnieszka from ASM, for organizing this webinar in collaboration with Build Up, and last but not least, to all attendees for joining us to learn more about the outcomes of COGITO. And now, sorry, I do not have control.
Can you click once on the screen and then there we go.
Yeah, okay, here we are. And now short recap on the COGITO solution and objectives, as well as the project progress after 2.5 years after its start. It was 2020 when developing the COGITO proposal. A thorough desk search revealed that the construction phase had been overlooked by the digital twin community, where many studies highlighted that lack of commonly agreed standards and low interoperability among collected data are considered major drawbacks to the enterprise's digital transformation. Delving deeper into the source of the problem, and searching for ways to address those drawbacks, we witnessed the need for going beyond static building information modeling by leveraging technologies like IoT, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence, and more specifically, the need for transparent platforms that enable BIM data fusion with IoT data and the digital twin applications results to foster the sufficient and efficient collaboration between many parties involved in construction projects. Literature was abreast of examples of applications that can benefit from the use of digital technologies and platforms, like progress in resource tracking, automated quality assessment, dynamic prediction of resources requirements, to name but a few. These exemplary applications highlighted the need of a construction phase digital twin model, COGITO, a digital twin model that encapsulates all the mechanisms to share the data across stakeholders, enabling this way the development of new solutions and services for smart construction of infrastructure. To address the aforementioned challenges and needs, COGITO has introduced a multi-phases digital representation, virtual replicas actually, of a construction project, using methods to ensure interoperability among the different components and technologies constituting the digital twin ecosystem. The 13 partner COGITO consortium illustrated in this map has developed and delivered first a transparent digital twin management platform, and secondly a digital construction 4 toolbox that contributes to the productivity improvement and increased safety. In more detail, COGITO relies on a number of key components. The COGITO Digital Twin Platform, which is actually the core of the COGITO system for master data management adhering to a COGITO data model and its ontological representation, to ensure semantic interoperability among the different components and technologies constituting the digital ecosystem. Multi-source visual and IoT data preprocessing modules to pre-process raw data, visual and IoT data, and generate curated data that are stored in the digital twin platform. The health and safety services, digital twin applications actually, to generate rules for hazard detection based on design and planning, and issue preventive warnings or alerts to construction workers. The quality control digital twin applications to retrieve as designed and as is data from the digital twin platform and detect defects and areas out of tolerance using advanced algorithms. The workflow modeling, simulation, and management services, digital twin applications to monitor and optimize the construction process for cost and time. And last but not least, rich graphical user interfaces and supporting apps to assist parties involved in the decision making and progress reporting processes. 4 technical objectives fully aligned with the development and delivery of Cogito toolsets, and 2 business exploitation and knowledge transfer objectives have been set for the project implementation. And the consortium so far has completed significant work aimed at delivering the key outputs associated to it. Starting with objective number 4, suitable pre-validation and validation pilot sites have been identified and are currently being used to test many of the tools. Whereas from the pre-validation experiments and tests, significant learning has already been achieved that has led to various adjustments and corrections on the Cogito solution, input data requirements, and various Cogito tools functionalities. As for objective 5, Cogito does not only aim to work with established standards, with the large-scale adoption of the digital twin concept. In the last years, different standardization bodies have started working in the specification of standards for digital twins. And in the project, we have followed and participated in such emerging initiatives and collaborating with our sister projects. Dissemination activities have been focused on the strong visibility of the Cogito project tools and innovations in the construction industry at the European level. Actually, cooperation with Building Digital Twin Association and Stand ICT allowed us to organize joint workshops and to develop scientific papers with sister projects. Cogito representatives were promoting the project during several European and international events. And regarding the business approach and exploitation plans, Cogito partners developed business lean canvases following dissemination and exploitation manager instructions, and declared their intentions for exploiting the project technical and non-technical results. In objective 1, the second and the third versions of the Cogito data model and ontology definition, as well as interoperability design, the digital twin platforms that support both the necessary information management as well as the semantic and pragmatic alignment among the Cogito services and data processing systems. The IoT data preprocessing tool that gathers raw IoT data that are coming from sensorial devices installed or worn on the construction site, and generates data sets that can be directly stored in the Cogito Digital Twin platform, and the digital command sender that renders the 3D BIM model, IoT data, and other data and annotations generated by the domain-specific digital twin applications like quality control, health and safety, and workflow management have been delivered so far. As for objective 2 is concerned, a tool used for defining work orders templates, generating work orders, and executing or monitoring the defined workflow, a mobile app for supporting work orders execution and reporting, a tool that allows the user to identify process steps that are critical for the successful implementation of the project, exposing optimization opportunities to minimize time and cost, and a software package for commercial AR head-mounted displays to help to visualize and interact in situ with the output of quality control tools results, like severity of geometric visual defects, have also been delivered. Dedicated webinars are coming soon to present the outcomes linked to objective 2 and 3. So please stay tuned to our social media channels for updates. Concluding this presentation, I would like to very briefly introduce the outcomes of objective 3 that will be further explained and presented in the next presentation given by Jochen. I'm referring to the Safe CONEI tool that identify areas in the BIM model where hazards are, suggests and adds mitigation measures to the model. The proactive safety tool that utilizes and analyzes location data of resources like equipment and personnel on the construction site to avoid close calls, accidents, and collateral damage. And the virtual safety tool that provides personalized construction safety education and training through an easy to use virtual reality environment. That was the end of my presentation. Back to you, Emily.
Thank you. Oh, here's my camera. All right, I think we'll go to a quick Q&A now. See, we haven't been too long into the webinar yet, but let's see if there are any questions for you. A moment. Okay, let's see. We have here one. So you mentioned at the very beginning that the construction phase has so far been overlooked by the digital twin community. Why do you think this is, and do you see it changing at all? Do you see any kind of trend of that sort of moving, or the kind of staying in the same way?
Yeah, actually, I think that we're moving to the right way. And actually, during the last 2 years, where actually the project was running, we witnessed a lot of progress in the digital twins and how digital twins and technologies relevant to digital twinning have emerged and are now implemented in various tools. Apart from that, as I mentioned, we have seen a lot of effort in standardization activities and how to make all the data relevant to digital twinning in the construction phase open, accessible, and standardized. So yes, I think that there is progress and we are in the right way. And I hope that our outcomes so far are fully aligned with what has been emerged during the last years.
Great, thank you. Yeah. And then one other question is, do you have any lessons learned so far from the project? And if yes, what are they?
Yeah, actually, there are plenty of lessons learned that we did our best to be collected and documented in a relevant deliverable that will be soon available to all the end users or stakeholders. The deliverable is about the pre-validation activities of the project and what we learned with regards to gathering, collecting data that could meet requirements relevant to the domains that we are working on, like health and safety, quality control, and workflow management. So, as I said, there are many lessons learned. I could not touch upon them during the next couple of minutes. I would strongly recommend the interested listeners to have a look on our website, where actually we're going to upload the relevant material and deliverable as well.
Great, definitely, yeah. Yeah, actually, so our last month we had a topic of the month. It was on knowledge transfer, and one thing that came out was that the lessons learned from projects are so very important, almost as important as the project results. Of course, best practice, and also what not to do. So, yeah, such an important thing. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I think we'll move to our first poll. So we encourage the audience to take part. So you can either join by scanning the QR code that you see on the screen, or you can go to slido.com and include the code at the bottom there. So I'll give a minute or two for people to join there, and then we can begin it. Okay. All right, I think we'll get started shortly. Okay, start with our first question here. All right, what are your preferred channels to receive information about projects like COGITO? Okay, we have a few answers coming in. It's nice. I'll give it a few more seconds in case someone else wants to join. And yes, of course, you can select more than one answer. Okay. Oh, still moving. All right, I think webinar seems to be the clear winner. And then, oh, webinars and social media, followed by newsletter as the top three. I think that that makes sense. Good. Okay, let's move to the next question. All righty, here we go. Next question. Did you see any promotional material from the COGITO project? And if no, then skip the next question that follows. All right, I think almost 3/4 of people said yes, they did. That's good. It's good news for the project. Maybe we'll wait a few more seconds. All right. So about 2/3, not too bad. Okay, I think we'll go to the next question. This is the last question of this poll. And it is in relation to the previous question. So what is your opinion of the COGITO project material if you've seen it? This is a free text one, so feel free to write any comments, good, or maybe points of improvement. We have eye-catching, you in the building management, very professional, very informative, good videos. It'd be nice to have more videos of the tools on the website. Okay, got 2 more people typing. Good and informative. Oh, this is good. Project's doing well. We'll wait for the last person here and then we'll move on to our next presentation. Perhaps a larger LinkedIn presence. Yeah, LinkedIn is a good channel for sure for projects. Okay, very nice. Thank you everyone for partaking. A reminder that of course you can send us questions throughout the, oh, excuse me, throughout the webinar. And actually, we did receive another question for Georgos, so maybe you want to go ahead and answer it now. Are you here, Georgos?
I'm here.
Hi, yes, so we did get one question, so maybe you want to answer it now. It was, are there any open source software you would recommend someone who is fairly comfortable with BIM, but would like to know more on using digital twins?
Actually, we have been experimenting with various tools. So far, the tools that is being used for developing the BIM models is Revit. Although there are many changes that were performed to make data aligned with our requirements, and actually I'm referring to changes that were performed in the IFC exporter. So to tackle any specific request that should be met for construction for infrastructure projects, it was really important to proceed with some recommendations with regards to property sets. I know that all these are quite technical and very specific to what I'm referring. But as I mentioned, we are doing our best to provide tools that could be accessible by many stakeholders. So please stay tuned, since after the exploitation of the project, I do believe that some of the components that are being developed will be accessible, open and accessible by many partners. For example, some of the specifications functionalities provided by the Digital Twin platform will be for sure available by the community. And also the ontology and the data models that are being developed within the project are available to a wider audience already. Maybe we could have a post maybe on our LinkedIn about the tools that are already available, and a link to our ontology. And as I mentioned, please stay tuned, since I'm pretty sure that most of the results would be accessible to a wider audience.
Great, thank you. Okay, all right, I think we'll move to our next presentation. Johan, you're ready?
Yes.
Okay.
I hope you can see my screen.
We can, yes, go ahead.
Great. Well, good morning to everybody, or wherever you are in the world. Good afternoon, or early in the night, maybe. My name is Jochen Theis. I'm a professor at the Technical University of Denmark, and my part in the COGITO project is construction safety and health for the construction phase. I want to show you a quick outline of my agenda today, a little bit of motivation and background, a little bit on the digital twin concept for the construction phase and how it may tie towards safety. I think many of you are familiar with either one of the concepts, but probably not so much with safety. And then I want to go into three distinct topics: prevention through design and planning for infrastructure projects in particular, because that's the main focus of COGITO, and proactive construction site monitoring and control. So what tools are available to actually capture data, because that's where much of the digital twin is about. And then also about personalized learning. And at the end, I conclude with some key takeaways. The motivation, many of you are familiar with, construction is probably the least, or the most hazardous work environment that we have around the world, and especially fatalities occur. And numerous injuries, and a lot of attention has been put on close calls in the past decade, I would say, and still a lot of the injuries and fatalities and any incident is not going down to zero. So that's a big goal that has been prevailing the industry for a while. As you see here some statistics from the US, but it's pretty much everywhere in the world if not increasing. Actually, some of these numbers are quite dramatic. And our goal is to actually use and create a digital twin that adds to the high-level control theories that exist for safety by complementing them with digitalization. I'm going through here a bit quicker because some of you might be safety professionals, and this is an old hat of you, this Swiss cheese model. But about 15 years ago, I thought about adding digitalization to that end, and it's really good that digital twins come to life right now to ensure that we don't focus too much on lagging indicators or on safety reports or statistics, rather than being proactive and trying to prevent incidents. This is what all a digital twin is about. It's about capturing the current state of the art, actually thinking about how we can design safely and plan projects safely, collect data, even predict future events, and if they turn out to be dangerous, actually prevent them. And that's where this proactive avoidance comes in. So digitalization should also not be seen as a replacement of workers, actually as a tool, as an aid to enhance the decision making. Why do I talk about that? Just yesterday, there were 2 fatalities in Germany where a train actually ran into a work crew that was on the rail tracks. So it's actually quite an example that's really has a lot of meaning actually for the COGITO project. So the next safety moment we have in the COGITO project, we want to devote to this tragic event that happened yesterday. And well, the causes are not clear yet, but of course walkers were on the track, and they shouldn't have been on the track when a train is approaching. So the question could be, okay, how could a digital twin assist here? And I want to give you maybe an understanding of how safety is planned in rail infrastructure projects. On the left-hand side, you see a manual effort. Actually, this is a whiteboard, a magnetic whiteboard, where you shift around the resources that you have, whether it's equipment or personnel, and you actually ensure that these crews are not on the wrong side of the track. And actually, this has a meaning, this term being on the wrong side of the track. And these tools, as you know, they may be efficient, but when it goes out in reality, like I explained with this example a few seconds ago, it may not work out, and people don't go home safely. On the right-hand side, you actually see a building information model, actually a snapshot of a part of it for a large infrastructure rail project. And you can see even the modelers themselves don't sometimes understand or know, because they're not familiar with safety, of how to implement guardrails to protect a staircase underneath a bridge or on an embankment. There's different approaches. Now the question is, how can we enhance that? And that's where COGITO is partially focusing on. So we want to get away with this by actually twisting safety and getting away from this linear approach, top down, like the CEO approving safety, rather thinking circular, like planning, monitoring, and making decisions better. That's what I think should be done to make the next project safe. Then from experience to evidence, we have a lot of knowledge gathered the past 30, 40 years. Construction is a very smart industry. We have a lot of best practices. We just need to capitalize on that. So we need to become evidence-based. That's what the digital twin is also about. Yeah, we have a lot of data, but we just don't record it and use it. So we need to become and develop tools and methods to actually create evidence and then base our decision making and enhance. And we need to be not reactive anymore, like I said, to safety statistics, rather being on the right time. It doesn't need to be real time, but at the right time. Yeah, safety planning can happen upfront. Monitoring should happen probably in runtime as quickly as technology is able to provide data from a construction site. And decisions should be then given real time if a worker is at imminent danger, or maybe a bit later when a safety manager wants to pull a record. How have we performed this week? So that's what a digital twin is about. So let me show you a little bit of how our work package in COGITO is managed. And again, I don't have the time to explain this in detail, because we connect to the construction side. We also connect to a whole bunch of tools that are a part of the digital twin platform, other tools that do work site planning, work process planning. And so we tie in that. That's, I think, what I can do. We tie in it on 2 levels. One is the planning phase and one is the construction phase. Yeah, I have simplified this a bit to give you a better understanding. Yeah, here's a construction site. Actually, we develop safety tools for building information, which obviously are, due to their nature, 4D models which contain geometric information as well as schedule information, we tie into that. So you'd capitalize the already existing digital information. We then want to give work crews plans so they know where to go and how to work safely. But we also want to give them tools and devices where they can report or are being informed of hazards and how to avoid them. And furthermore, any data we record about the ongoing activities on a job site, we want to record it and analyze it and actually give safety management or construction project management advice of how to improve it. Yeah, what we don't want to forget, and that's the last piece in the puzzle here, is to do some education and training. Actually, it starts already at the elementary level and goes into higher education probably, or even in vocational schools. But there is a big effort that COGITO also focuses on actually advancing the safety behavior of workers by training. Yeah. So, and then the next project, of course, can be planned. So I started with the first of the 3 levels, the planning effort. What do we do in COGITO on safety planning? This we call SafeCon AI, and it basically deals with prevention through design and planning. Many of you are familiar with prevention through design concept, but actually I think this planning is important because in construction we plan a job site just before it actually is being executed, or the work tasks. Maybe we start out here at the top left. You see a safety rule for fault protection. That's just an example. We deal with a couple of different matters in COGITO, predominantly with heavy equipment to pedestrian workforce interaction. But I've picked out this one because this is one of the pilot sites we have in COGITO is in Copenhagen. Copenhagen is building or extending its metro. Actually, we have taken a new subway station. We have models, and this is a simplified model. It's a very rough one. But even that one we can utilize to analyze for hazards that relate to fault protection. And as we know, safety planners or people who prepare the work phase, they have a lot of things to do, but have limited time to do it. And here we create a tool that actually assists them in detecting fall hazards and implementing guardrails. So we detect walkable surfaces and spaces and fall surfaces and spaces, and we tell where the guardrail has to go. In the end, for people who don't really care about the technical matters, all what matters is where does it go, what qualities do you need, and maybe the cost or the investment that's necessary. I think that's the bottom line for people maybe in the field, and maybe tie that to a 4D schedule. I want to give you a visual. It's not from an infrastructure project, but in COGITO we also explored a little bit high-rise buildings or building projects. Here you see the difference between a typical BIM, a model that you typically see on the right, once our algorithm has performed, of what is a result. And here you see actually the guardrails being shown right away. And of course, any of the qualities can be taken off like you typically do in building information modeling and in estimating. Going back, we have pilot demonstration sites throughout the project. Actually, we closed out one a couple months ago, and it was a light rail project. And you see here the light rail, the 2 rails. There's an underpass below the rails and some buildings that have been worked on the roof, but also some other hazards that we can identify. This is just a result of how a site safety plan or a safe site layout plan can be created with very little effort. Actually, this model, once we process it, takes 34 seconds to yield this result. Yeah, you see here the guardrail. It's almost according to code, I would say. I mean, of course, we have always ways to improve, but it can be done that you can assist a safety planner by getting such models. And actually, that's a big step forward because safety planning is either not done frequently on a construction site or just once in the beginning, and then someone is expected to understand how it progresses over time. So that's a big step forward. Our result or a feedback that we also got is to update it more frequently than it's currently done. So this is a component we are still working on, and our project is still running for a couple of months, and our next pilot job sites will be ready to implement the next level of our tool. Now I have shown a little bit of the planning effort for safety. I'm going now into monitoring and alerting. Again, we focus here on infrastructure sites. And I want to just give you with this graph an understanding of how difficult these job sites are, because we don't deal just with physical objects or that include equipment, but also with human factors. And it becomes a very interesting component of what are actually pedestrian workforce. I always distinguish between pedestrian workforce and operators. My apology, just to separate these traits that are out there a little bit. But it's interesting to see this complexity of the issue. So a truly working digital twin has to do much more than doing safety rule checking, like shown earlier, or connecting models and drawing quantities. No, it has to do much more, because it has to end up with the human. Anyway, let me show you a little bit, because the current safety close call reporting process is here shown horizontally. I'm not going through this detail. Maybe I just highlight a little bit. Once a close call occurs, again, we focus on close calls in Cogito, and the reason is that we don't want to even get to the stage where an injury or a fatality has occurred. So we want to prevent these incidents already at the close call stage or even before. But assuming that we observe or are close to observe a close call, typically workforce then reports that the on-site safety professional further pushes it upwards the chain, enters it maybe in a close call database where a peer review team makes a decision. As long as I've explained here, it takes almost forever, as some workers told us, for them to get feedback of how they actually should have performed more safely. And that we figured out, and we said, actually, okay, let's use some smart sensor system to understand a bit better what are the activities and how they work on a construction site. That is being pushed to a cloud, to a database. Let's call it a digital twin platform. Within that, we tie it to a building information model, and we do further processing of trajectory information. So we actually assist in this automated data collection process that we envision. And furthermore, we want to generate information, and that information should become knowledge that we actually can return to the workforce. Again, we have a paper written about this here. I don't have to explain more details, as I already did, but if you have need for more information, we can easily provide that to you. Here's an example on the left-hand side. By the way, there is no clear definition about what a closed call is, just to warn you a little bit. On the right-hand side, you see a simplified graph of how we envision this to happen with digital means or with digital tools. Any piece of equipment probably has a protective envelope. We base our protective envelope on the ISO 5006. I must say there it deals mostly with blind spots for equipment operators, and it tells to measure these at a distance of 12 meters. Of course, we know that these proximity distances vary based on the equipment, but also on the speed, etc. And that's something that we also learned in Cogito. There's a lot of data and a lot of definitions that are necessary actually to come up with a standard that Jorgos earlier talked about. But here we apply safety envelopes around a piece of equipment and also around a worker. When those two pink areas collide, we actually assume a close distance. Let's assume that this for now is a close call. We further take this data and actually utilize satellite images. We actually take point clouds from drones or from laser scanning, from terrestrial laser scanning, and we fuse this with trajectory information. This trajectory information can come from any source. As a matter of fact, in Cogito, we heavily focus on RTK GNSS solutions for the outdoor environment in construction sites, but also for Bluetooth Low Energy interior. Those who are familiar with the technology, every technology has disadvantages and advantages, and some will work better than the other. That has to be considered, but technology is ready. I mean, even the RTK GNSS space station and the rovers that we have to very precisely measure the location of workers and equipment. Yeah, here, for example, you see a vision-based approach where you also can utilize and capitalize cameras to detect people, but that has not been the focus of Cogito. What we can do is we can record trajectories of information. Here you see a concrete truck arriving, and actually you get information from workers. Yes, you may have the question already posted in the chat. It might be very intrusive to track workers, but let's think about that. Yes, there's GDPR requirements to fulfill, and that thing about tracking workers is a completely unresolved matter. But for our part, yeah, this is a research project that tries to test out and collect feedback. So of course, we are not making a policy that it should be allowed to track workers, but yes, we need to solve that bottleneck. Eventually, we may not track workers all the time, but maybe we give them a 1 day, half day, to a couple of hours training where we put these devices on them. It might be enough to sensitize them and making a change in their behavior possible. Here you see some early results. On the left-hand side, some manually annotated observations. Again, we could use computer vision approaches to track these entities. That's not a problem anymore. On the right-hand side, you see that our algorithms we have developed within COGITO actually allow you to really pinpoint the location where close calls have occurred, where a worker and the equipment, when the equipment was arriving, got very close. Yeah, well, still in the environment we had out there in a safe way, but yeah, probably it should not have occurred that this equipment got so close to a pedestrian walker. Yeah, there's a lot of data that will be recorded. A lot of data can be analyzed. Actually, we intend of coming up with solutions about coming up with standardized protective envelopes for equipment and workers. Here's an example from a rail project in Germany. There's also data from work crews that have been working on a rail track, on a high-speed rail track, and you see here the plenty of observations where workers are close to equipment. And this just indicates, well, this was a new construction, but assume that this would be a live track. They should have never gone to the other track over there. So data that we recorded can be utilized for such case studies. Now, I've shown the planning effort. I've shown a little bit about what we do with monitoring and probably proactive alerting by creating heat maps and other relevant data. Let's go a little bit into virtual safety. On that end, we actually focus on advancing the training environment. I mean, you all are probably familiar with instructions, whether it's on-site or in a classroom. It can be quite boring to listen to a PowerPoint presentation for a while. Or you get actually, like this company has done, as we have observed, on-site training, where they have a little mock-ups where you have to train every month once. Everybody is forced, otherwise they're not allowed to work on the job site. And we see there's this trend away from this passive listening or viewing images, watching videos, or watching demonstrations towards more this hands-on exercise. As a matter of fact, we have worked with vocational schools to employ the gamification principle, and of course that uses somewhat the extended realities. Extended realities includes components like virtual reality, augmented reality, or even augmented virtuality. In COGITO, we focus on a subset of virtual reality, which is a third-person reality environment, where you actually are playing on a computer screen and actually see the person walking from a rear perspective. You will see a video in a second, which hopefully makes sense. But this gamification allows people to actually very well observe a job site and behave in a way that perform a work task. What's so novel about this training environment? Actually, it's quite difficult to create these virtual reality training environments. It takes time, a lot of time and resources. It is expensive. And our goal in COGITO is to simplify it, actually to take the component we got from SafeCon AI. As you've seen in SafeCon AI, we were able to capture the hazardous spaces and the fault protection spaces. In case of an infrastructure project, this would be maybe around a machine, the protective envelope. But we are able to capitalize this piece of information we generated and import it together with the IFC model in the gaming engine. In our case, we use Unity, but all of that done is more or less automatically. And here is the training scene. Yes, the health safety environment trainer has a little bit chance to modify it, for example, by clicking and saying, I want to have that many hazards, these types of hazards, these are located here and here. That's all possible. Then the interaction happens with the trainee. The trainee is actually exposed to the scene, and we don't use the scene just for visualization purposes like most people do with headsets, with virtual reality headsets. No, we also collect data about the participants while they are in the training scenario and perform their tasks. And that we capitalize. Again, it's a data set that is almost similar to a real world, because we try to create these training environments as realistic as possible, and even though sometimes a bit playful, because I think we have figured out that workers are, or actually apprentices in that case, were quite happy with the level of detail that we provided. It was realistic for them, but we capitalize information that looks very similar to the reality. Okay, let me show you this. Yeah, just to conclude on this here a little bit, maybe. Yeah, it's in the intent that the attendees get a chance to get objective feedback and self-assess their performance, and furthermore, that an instructor provides more objective feedback to them, so they really gain trust in what is being told to them, and that should also increase their safe behavior in the long run. As you can see here, very similar to the SafeCon AI. This is the model, and we have imported that, and so we have actually here some hazards. I mean, these were manually placed because we don't know which type of two-way excavator is actually being utilized, so that has to be properly defined by the project. And you can see here already, yeah, multiple things that have to happen. For example, you have to walk around. You probably go by this unprotected leading edge, and you probably have to go and pick it up here and put it in one of the recycling containers back over here. And as you do that, you perform tasks that probably put you at risk, whether you're aware of it or not. It doesn't matter in the first place, but that's the kind of the goal of this game. As you see here, first, of course, we give those who are not experienced with 3D person views or virtual reality, we give them a training in the tutorial, and then they go actually into the scene. As you can see here, there's a little bit of a guardrail missing. You see it in a second much better in much more detail. You see you have two ways crossing this rail track, either through the safe bridge or this temporary bridge that was built, or you cross through the traffic that may encounter here. You also have here this the recycling containers back here, where you bypass actually a dozer that levels the ground. Yeah, I show you these videos. They run simultaneously. Maybe you focus first on the left. You see here somebody didn't observe it falls. Our scene is actually more dramatic now, so we are constantly involving that. And here on the right-hand side, you see somebody walking inside that area where the dozer has bypassed this excavator, barely got out of the way, and yeah, now that worker is on the way to get to the recycling containers, and of course that person shouldn't be in that area. Maybe it would be good to follow up with us in the near future. We will probably post more videos of this as the tool has become much more sophisticated. And of course, it looks a bit more advanced than actually I'm showing here right now. Yeah. In terms of feedback, as I said, the data we record in reality has a very similar nature like we do collect in virtual reality. Here you see a plan view in this top image here. You see a plan view of the trajectories of the workers. Here is the safety bridge, and any one of those gray dots actually are close calls by the players, and we can analyze that for purposes. And then think about what could we have done better in the planning stage. So actually, we don't just end there with the training. We actually could go back to SafeCon AI and enhance the planning effort by having people just play this. Now, if I go back to the earlier tragic example I've talked about, where 2 workers got killed just yesterday, think about if the workers would have had a chance. I mean, those 2 who got killed, because the other 5 they got a big shock. But think about if this entire work crew would have been able to exercise such a training before, and also think about the constraint about the work time that they had available on this rail track, and maybe the Deutsche Bahn, maybe they could have actually also probably put a schedule in it when the trains will start running again. Probably such an accident could be avoided, right, by alerting everybody again. Have we implemented the right measures to prevent such accidents? Again, this is a preliminary screenshot of one of our user interfaces that is more geared towards the trainer, that shares then feedback with the participants. At the bottom, we see a very basic and brief screenshot or part of a screenshot for feedback. We want to keep it simple. And actually, I want to tell one important thing. Safety should not be always bashing the workers and saying, you did something wrong, you did something wrong. No, we should want to give them also positive feedback if possible. So if we see something that is good behavior, we should also praise them. And I think that's something we learn in COGITO and in other projects, that positive feedback should also be mentioned. So in a summary and an outlook, I showed 3 parts. It was the planning, the proactive monitoring and analysis and control, but also some of the training efforts. What are the key takeaways? Unfortunately, government mandated definitions and requirements for safety are only one of the practices that we should employ nowadays. Digital twins can offer so much more. The content and the methods for safety, however, are currently not built for the digital world. The current methods are stale, static, even asynchronous, maybe just for one person meant and not for a work crew. Traditional tools cannot adapt to the feature constrained, non-interactive and fragile products that we have out there. The construction industry is very fragmented, yeah. And furthermore, we have a lack of skilled labor. The users in the end are changing. They're demanding now interactive, high fidelity and contextualized content. This is what digital twins can enable. BIM is not static anymore. BIM becomes dynamic. And that's what we call then a digital twin. Furthermore, we actually do prediction. That's very important. This prediction to avoid future potential accidents is, I think, a key of our work package. So our philosophy is to build on that every hazard should have an adequate safeguard, direct control and measure that can be applied at the right time, not necessarily real time. I've shown the 3 tools: design and planning, proactive monitoring and control, and personalized feedback. Even though that was short, I must say technology is seen as an enabler, not as a replacement of workforce. It supports data gathering, analysis and forecasting, knowledge-based decision making. That's the focus. That's the key goal that we want to accomplish. And maybe a little bit of an outlook. I mean, we still have time left. Our sister projects have a little bit time left. There's well-established industry practices in place and processes. They require change. A good thing about this EU mandate and the EU taxonomy that is coming up, even though it doesn't impact the construction phase quite yet, is this demand for documenting your efforts or your activities in much higher level, at a much higher level than seen before. And that will drive change. And if you do this change, you have to rethink your processes. It starts there. It also starts with your minds, with your safety culture in the company, where you learn and advance together by sharing. There is no competitive advantage if you get workers hurt. It costs you money. We can prove that an investment in safety, I'm not talking about cost, an investment in safety, it yields at least a 3 to 4 to 1 return compared to not doing it. So because you also increase productivity at the same time. So there's a lot of things that show impact. Anyway, coming back to education and training, I like in the United States, they recently had a workshop with industry, and a key result was actually safety has to start in primary and secondary schools and then lead to long life learning. Yeah? If you don't capture those users, we will take another decade or two generations to advance safety in construction. So digital twins are a great opportunity. Last but not least, yes, while your world out there, if you're a practitioner, is our laboratory, because we like to come to you. You should always value that the human capital, especially in these days, is probably the most scarce resource and the most important resource that you should focus on. So safety and health is a key component, I guess, on COGITO, not just safety and health, but any other of the topics like quality, productivity, progress monitoring, and so on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Johan. Thanks for a very nice presentation. Okay, so we're reaching the end of our hour here, but we have a few questions and a last poll, and then we'll wrap up. So I think it's okay. We'll carry on just for a few more minutes so we can manage to do everything. All righty. So we'll go quickly to Q&A. We've had some nice questions come in. So if both of our presenters want to maybe turn their cameras on and unmute so we can see if they can answer the questions. So the first question we have that came in is when will the health and safety tool actually be available on the market and fully developed?
That is a good question. I mean, commercially available products typically require 10 to 15 years. I must admit, some of our efforts have started about 10 years ago, so it would be about time to get through a project like COGITO or one of the sister projects to get these out and running. But please keep in mind the TRI, the level of implementation is not at a commercial product level. So it may take time. It may actually take the investment of the industry to participate in getting these out. I think that's also one of the COGITO's goals to think about how it's going on, moving on to the next level.
Definitely, yes, it's definitely key. Okay, actually, you want to, in relation to your presentation, we got a question about the simulator that you showed, and the question is, can third parties use the simulator?
I'm questioning which simulator is this. Is it the last one or the?
I think the last one. I believe the last one.
Yeah, the training. Of course, we like to collaborate with anybody. The best way is to reach out and contact us. For example, with the safety training, as part of COGITO, we work with contractors or with the partner contracting companies, but we also do things outside of the project, of course, just to advance the industry. Same to Safeguarding AI. I think anything that you have seen today can be used. We're more than happy to work with them, with you.
Very nice, good. Okay, we have another question as well from our audience, which is, I've just come back from the UK Construction Week, and I heard the construction sector is not very good at storytelling so many times. I understand this is a big question, but what steps do you think can improve in that digital twins aren't just a nice to have tool? So this maybe is for both speakers.
Yeah, so storytelling, right? Maybe I start out while George is maybe joining. Well, safety makes a great story. Like I said, 15 years ago, I said, BIM, it's nice, but it doesn't really apply to safety yet because there is no so-called safety detection tool like we know in BIM exists for clash detection, like where you have structural components clash and you want to detect them early before you go to the construction phase. Similarly, safety, you can solve that. So I think storytelling for safety is quite simple, like I have done today, unfortunately, with pointing out this tragic accident that has occurred.
Yes, yeah, unfortunately, yes, yeah. Georgios, I don't know if you have something you want to add. You don't have to, but if you like to.
Actually, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I fully support that comment. And the truth is that most of the parties involved in construction projects are engineers. So it's really hard for an engineer to have a good storytelling. And I do hope that one of the outcomes of the project would be to preparing something like an overarching story of the project, lessons learned, and how the utilization of tools that we are developing could benefit stakeholders, but in presenting the tools in an easy way, understandable by a wider audience. So we do hope that having the support of our dissemination exploitation expert, actually Nesca is here, will prepare the relevant material to deliver at the end a very good overarching story of using such digital solutions in construction projects.
I may add one component. because the UK was mentioned. I mean, we know certain countries have much stricter practices, and often led by industry, as a matter of fact, than other countries. And this story that we need for the European Union, maybe elsewhere in the world for sure as well, is that there is no concentrated effort. It's always national based and not EU-wide for safety and health in this particular domain that my work package is on. And probably it's the same on other efforts, right? It takes a lot of time to even change standards. And that's something that has to be brought up. And I think this is so good in COGITO, where we have partners from Spain, from Austria, and other countries, even Greece, like contractors. I mean, that assist in understanding this and driving it hopefully a bit more forward.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Okay, let's. Let's take one final question. So this, I think, is for Johan as well. With regard to the monitoring aspect that you showed, isn't it very expensive for a company to implement these real-time location sensors? And how do you overcome such a challenge?
Yes, we have very good discussions even within the project. What is the return of investment? I mean, return of investment, I mean, not financially meaning, but yes, some of the technologies are infrastructure heavy, and somebody has to be really careful about that. On the other hand, since these are often prototypes not originally developed for the construction industry, they are also quite expensive. So COGITO is performing some pilot projects and demonstrations that show the general possibility to use such technology, right? It's on the way, and then I guess if we have manufacturers on board, even smart textiles that have such sensors embedded, I think it can be reached the level where there is a triggering point. I mean, we're going into that domain. You see it with autonomous cars, even though that analogy is a bit difficult to take, because even autonomous cars haven't been fully implemented yet, and they have their drawbacks, as we all know over the reports the past couple of months. But yes, it's moving towards it. So it's yeah, you have to start. I think that's the big thing to learn. You have to start at some point. If you don't start and you don't make mistakes, you will not learn and you will not improve so quickly. And that's what I like about some organizations who are leaders in safety. They start and they do, and they make mistakes, and they know it will happen, and they still are not discouraged to continue. Mm-hmm.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we have a one final poll, but just 2 questions. So for those of you that are still here, our audience, you can scan the QR code. It's just 2 questions, and then we're going to wrap up. So I'll wait a second for people to join. Maybe we can, let's see, launch it here. So just quickly, did you participate in the first COGITO webinar on practical tools for the construction sector? Yes or no? Got a couple of responses, yes and no. I'll just wait a few more seconds so we can wrap up here. Okay, so quite a few people know, almost 50-50 here. Yes and no. All right, well, because it is a series, so we're gonna give some information about the next one right at the end. Okay, so 50-50 in the end. All right. Okay, then our final question, it's a free text one, which is, if you are not participating in a previous COGITO webinar, what are your expectations towards such events? What kind of information would you like to receive? So it's a free text. Please let I'm sure the project organizers and the dissemination manager would be very pleased to hear any useful comments here. All right, we've got a few comments. New methods of safety training. Is more interested in the health HSE sector information, updates on project results, of course. These can also be found on the project website. And interactive material is good to have, like the simulator videos, yes. Efficient safety models. Very nice and good comments here, thank you. All right, a couple of people still typing. We'll wait for them. Technology enablers for digital twins. I noticed BuildUp had events under the events tab, but COGITO did not. Maybe adding this to events will make it even easier for people in industry to see these webinars. A good idea. I'm sure the organizers will take that to heart. But yes, so BuildUp will also host the next webinars in this series, so you can also always go to the BuildUp website to find out more. One final person typing, and then we'll round off here. Finally, useful tips for university students that are learning safety management. Okay, very nice. Thank you everyone for participating. We really appreciate it. We are going to round off now. Oops, excuse me. So, of course, a big thank you to all the speakers and also to the audience, of course, for attending today's webinar. A reminder, of course, that you'll be able to find the recording of today's webinar on the BuildUp portal and also on our YouTube channel in the coming days, so next week, also together with the presentation slides. You can, of course, visit the COGITO project website. You can see here the address, cogito-project.eu, to find out more, including the latest project results. And of course, we encourage you to follow the project social media. They have LinkedIn, the handle is here, also Twitter, and they have Facebook too. So we look forward to seeing you again at the next webinar of the COGITO series, the third one. And the name of that one is Digital Tools for Workflow Management. And it will be, of course, once again, hosted by BuildUp, which will be great. And it will be on Thursday, May 25th at 11 CET. So we thank everyone again, and we wish you a very pleasant afternoon and weekend. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.